So apparently I stand in the way between you and lunch. So there we go. Hopefully I make it entertaining. Now, I was told backstage something very special about me. That is unusual. And that this is my first time in Dubai. And they said everyone else here has been in Dubai. So has anyone else had first timer just like me? Or oh, all right, good. So I don't feel so alone now. All right, so today I'm going to talk to you about the generative AI productivity paradox. We're going to talk about some AI habits and also how generative AI generates joy. So you like that alliteration? All right, so my company, first of all, Vivander Advisors, we're all about AI literacy workshops. We do generative AI research. We're advisors to owners for marketing and AI, and we're dedicated to hospitality. And also, I've actually been tasked through the HSMI Foundation to do special generative AI research. And this research is all about talent management because that's what the HSMI Foundation is all about. So we're researching how generative AI is used by marketing, sales, and revenue management in terms of specifically, and these are the guardrails, recruiting, professional development, and retention. So the results of this first research, this state of the industry research, will be coming out in Q1. And if those of you would like to participate in this research, I'll have a QR code here and also at the end, 7 minutes, and you guys can just share your input. And they talked about the book. That's the book I wrote, and I'll talk a little bit more about this book in tomorrow's master class. For those of you who want to attend it, it's all about prompting and image frameworks. I'll talk a little bit more about this book. All right, so generative AI. So John talked about it a little bit earlier today. Generative AI, what is it? He used the definition. I'll describe it a little bit differently. Generative AI is about generating new content, generating new images. And that's what, in this example I'm going to have for you, is sort of like the quintessential example, I think, of generative AI. So the gentleman on the right, he's a professor of Wharton in the University of Pennsylvania. His name is Ethan Mollick, and he does a lot of research on generative AI. And the woman on the left is not real. The woman on the left is an AI avatar. And what she says was all generated by generative AI. How you hear it was all generated by generative AI in the video. So I'll play it for about a minute for you. But what the professor did, he invited this avatar to a Zoom call and basically asked her to lead the most stereotypical Zoom meeting you can.
Oh, hey there. So glad you could join us. Just a quick heads up. Remember to keep an eye on that unmute button. It's like the ultimate Zoom faux pas, right? So do you have anything to add to the agenda today? Maybe some hot gossip from the break room?
No, I got nothing to report.
Got it. No worries at all. We all have those days, right? Sometimes it's just about keeping the wheels turning smoothly. But hey, if anything pops up while we're chatting, feel free to jump in. And speaking of jumping in, did you catch that latest update from marketing? Such a game changer. What do you think?
I'm worried about the synergy level.
Oh, I totally feel you on that. Synergy is key, right?
All right, so I'll pause it right there. But you can see where we've been a year ago. You couldn't imagine something like that. Now, a year from now, those lags and pauses will be gone. And actually, it'll seem like a real person at the other end. Now, when we talk about generative AI, a lot of people get a little confused as to what exactly it is. So if you look on the upper right-hand corner, a branch of a branch of a branch of AI, there are 15 different areas of AI, but generative AI is the top right-hand corner. So when people talk about AI, there's often confusion. Are you talking about generative AI, or are you talking about all AI? For me, today, I'll just be talking about generative AI. So you love, apart from generative AI, before generative AI existed, you loved this technology. It made your life so convenient. Look, LinkedIn. So I go to LinkedIn, and it says people that I might know in New York. And that is all AI, and looking to anticipate the connections that I might have. And nobody was having meetings about AI because it could do this. Or Netflix, the fact that Netflix could predict shows based on that my wife and I watched together that we might like. This prediction of shows we like is convenient. Again, nobody was having meetings about AI, about this. Or as I'm driving here from my house in Westchester, New York to JFK, you have the Waze map telling me the best route to get there. Again, this is awfully convenient, helpful to me, but we're not actually, 2 years ago, we weren't talking about this technology. And in fact, this technology has been around since the 1950s. And the technology consistently gets closer and closer. So below that top line there, the human is better. Above that dotted line, the AI is better. In certain technologies, the AI has been better for a while. And just 2 years ago, when generative AI came out, that is why we're having these meetings. This is why people seem to be so interested in this. So generative AI, what is so unique? What is so special about this technology? Well, it's been trained on all the knowledge of the internet. It is able to communicate in a way that we didn't think technology could communicate. It could write emails, it could write reports. It could do it extremely intelligently. So people wanted to harness this technology. So what is the promise of generative AI? Well, McKinsey says, you know what, there's about a $2.5 to $4.4 trillion impact of this technology. Even if they're off by 90%, that's still a lot of money. And the travel industry is continually being disrupted. It seems about every 20 years, and this is off the United States. Started with the highways, then with the deregulation of the airlines, and then the .com, and just the latest is this AI. It's just another disruption that is impacting travel. And McKinsey again says, you know, just for travel specifically per year, about $73 billion impact, and that's predominantly through sales and marketing and software engineering. But that is a huge impact, and this is why everyone seems to be so interested in this technology. And when we think about this technology, what it can do, so there was a study done by MIT and Stanford. What they did is they took customer service agents, very junior ones, about 2 months of experience, and they gave them an AI. And they compared the results and the output of senior customer service agents, 6 months and more of experience. And they found out that the 2-month junior customer service agents performed as well, if not better, than the more experienced agents using this technology. And then BU went and did a research study saying a similar, taking consultants, giving consultants with this technology and consultants with this technology. And they saw a continual percentage point increase, and they came up with the name, the immediate aptitude expansion effect. That is amazing. So what is the potential impact of this generative AI on the workforce? Well, you have all these management consulting companies coming out and saying, you know, Nielsen saying it's going to boost productivity 66%. MIT said not just all skilled, they talk about high-skilled workers, they're going to increase them 40%, just not all general workers. And then Deloitte said, you know what, it's going to reduce costs. It's going to reduce costs by 30%. And BCG said, you know, companies that adopt this technology, they're going to do 2.5 times better than other companies that don't adopt this technology. And McKinsey goes back and says, you know what, AI can automate 60 to 70% of data collection tasks. And then Bain says, you know what, tasks are done 40% faster with this. In fact, there are so many benefits of this technology. Boston Consulting Group said it'll save time, it'll increase speed, it'll improve quality, it'll free up time to do other work. There are all these advantages of this perceived technology. So AI can boost productivity, this generative AI, it can increase satisfaction, and it can cut costs. And this conference must believe that as well, because you have AI marketing, you have AI revenue management, you have AI sales, you have a couple of masterminds, you have the keynote this morning. So everything is about this new technology. But here's the reality. If you look at the headlines, you know, these projects that are being launched are just not succeeding. They're saying AI is actually making workers less productive. It's all hype. that generative AI is getting kicked off the pedestal. And then when we talk about projects, all these AI projects are failing. None of them are getting out of proof of concept. They're getting abandoned. There's a constant headline after headline of these projects that are failing. So why are these projects failing? Well, let's go back to the consultants again who are so wise about all the benefits of this technology. So you have Gartner saying, 85% of these projects fail because, there's no business value. And then Deloitte says, actually, it's because the resources are focusing on what's tactical instead of what's strategic. And then Accenture says, it's the lack of technical acumen of the people implementing it. That's the fault. McKinsey says, actually, it requires a full change management in the entire company. That is why it's failing. And then Booz Allen says, it's the employees. The employees are the ones that are resisting this. This is why the projects are failing. And then Accenture says, the workers want it, but the businesses aren't giving the people the skills that they need to do it. So this is the generative AI productivity paradox. It is this technology that seemingly can do these miraculous productivity, but in all actuality, we don't see that. And that's the paradox. And so roughly a paradox is two statements that seemingly can be true but are contradictory. And there are a couple of famous examples of paradoxes, like the ship of Theseus. You have a ship, you change one plank in it. Is it still the same ship? You have the same ship, you change all the planks in it at the end. Is it still the same ship? So that's the paradox. And in fact, generative AI productivity paradox isn't the first time this has been seen. Actually, it was first seen by Robert Solow in 1987. It talked about, in the computer age, you see productivity everywhere except in the statistics. And in fact, when I was at Northwestern working on my master's thesis, I worked on the technology productivity paradox. And it's something like this. You had this huge investment in the 70s and 80s in computers and in servers and in network. And the expectation was that you're going to see a huge increase of productivity. But actually, it never materialized, at least not initially. So what are the key challenges in terms of making these generative AI projects successful? There's a whole list of them, and I'll go through them in a moment. But let's look at a successful implementation. And we're going to look at it outside the hospitality industry. We're going to look at a very highly regulated industry, and we're going to look at what they do. And this is Moderna. The CEO of Moderna said, we are going all in on this generative AI technology. And what they did is they took a very comprehensive approach. They took a three-prong approach. They focused it from the individual level. They looked at individual employees. They gave them online and in-person training. And then they identified the best of them. They called them the AI champions. And these AI champions then went ahead and were part of the departments. And they created office hours. And they gamified prompting. And then structurally, you had management, the owners, the CEO, and the C-suite all saying, this is important. We are going to do this. We're focusing on this. Every town hall that they had, they brought in an expert to talk both internally and externally about this. And then what were the results? The results of Moderna going all in, 120 chats per person of these employees. And this is enterprise ChatGPT that they were using. Within 2 months, they had 40% of the workers creating very sophisticated prompting. And then this is, I think, really interesting, legal, because when I talk to hotels, and they say the lawyers don't let them use this technology. They are afraid of privacy issues. But in the hotel industry, we're basically just putting people to sleep. They're saving lives, and 100% of their lawyers are using this in a highly regulated industry. And then lastly, they indicated that now, leveraging this technology, teams of a few thousand can operate essentially like 100,000, even if they're off by half, 50,000. That's still huge. So what we want is to maximize the upside, get the benefits of this technology, and we want to minimize the downside, which is these projects just failing. And how are we going to do that? Well, we got to come up with a solution that impacts owners, brands, associates, and the guests. And that's hard to find. But here, solving the generative AI the paradox, it is all about AI literacy. When you have literacy, you have the basic level of competence within your company that you can then build upon to have the application of the skills, to have project success, to have organizational growth. It all starts with literacy. A lot of companies are starting with individual projects, but the project that companies need to start with is an AI literacy project, and it's all-encompassing. And in fact, BCG says that on the top left there, the lack of this literacy in non-tech roles, they see that as the biggest impediment to these projects being successful. Now, AI literacy, is it generative AI prompt engineering? It's a piece of it. Is it knowing when you see one of these words from an email or an article that you read that you know that it was generated by AI? That's a piece of it as well. But actually, it's a spectrum. It is understanding what generative AI is and what it can and can't do. It's understanding the data. The data is never going to be 100%. It's going to be 90% there. So then how do you deal with that? And then, yes, it is the prompting, but it's also knowing that this technology is multimodal. It can see, it can hear, it can speak. How do you embrace it? It is the automation, it's the agents. It is understanding artificial general intelligence that's coming. And then, apart from that, is understanding that the bias that's associated with it, the copyright problems and the ethics. And then ultimately, how you collaborate with it, and you take people that were before intuitive-driven decision makers to data-driven decision makers, pulling it all together. That is what AI literacy is. That under having this capability is what allows companies to build up and leverage this technology. So when we look at literacy, AI literacy as a project, and we look at all the things that were the problems of these AI projects and why they're failing, the technology mismatch. You know what? If you're a Microsoft company, use Copilot. If you're a Google company, use Gemini. And now, cost-benefit ratio, which was a hard problem to have when you have these big projects, but you focus on AI literacy, it's easy, it's easier to manage, and you can identify the cost-benefit there. Pressure to compete. A lot of companies, a lot of management said, we have to do something with AI. Telling the CTOs to do something with it. But you can have a project that is uncertain, that probably will fail, or you can do a project with AI literacy that will succeed. And then you have these inconsistent outcomes of projects, generative AI projects. But you know what? With AI literacy project, you will have consistent because you're going to create a benchmark across the entire organization. And then change management, which is what Mackenzie talked about as a challenge. Well, then you train people, you expand it, you look at the processes, and you continue to expand it, and soon the entire organization has a baseline understanding. And then the ROI difficulties. Well, with literacy, you can measure before, you can measure afterwards. You can do qualitative and quantitative surveys. And then they say lack of success criteria. Well, AI literacy is something that's very easy to measure with KPI criteria. You develop them, you do the surveys, and you constantly find them. And so you can actually succeed in the success criteria. And then the cost concerns, well, it's very finite. It is the employee time. It is the technology that you need to have, as well as the person that comes to train you. And the other thing is the technology is rapidly evolving. So you have to find a way to have this training that everyone has to become a lifelong learner. That is the future. It isn't one and done. Everyone has to constantly stay up and learn and know what's going on. And here are the outcomes of AI literacy. You've got work enjoyment, you've got improved decision making, and a whole host of benefits of doing this technology. And actually, when you have AI literacy, which is the what and the how, then you move to your team to an AI mindset, which is the when and the why. And when you have the what and the how and the when and the why, then you can move to strategy. And the strategy that you have allows you to now use your AI literate workforce, your workforce that has an AI mindset, and now you bring these projects that you heard about to drive success. Now you can align the capabilities, you can align the change management as well. So building the foundational skills with associates. So here's the thing, like tomorrow, I'll be doing this masterclass of prompting, and people will say, oh, this is great, I feel terrific about that. But that's not the case. It's not one and done. It's a continual thing. It needs to become a daily habit. And actually, Microsoft came out and documented this, and they called it the 11 by 11 tipping point, which is really what it is all about is people have to experience, using this technology, 11 minutes of time savings each day. 11 minutes of time saving. And this time savings of 11 minutes needs to be kept up for 11 weeks. So you have 11 minutes of time saving minimum for 11 weeks. And then at the 11th week, after this has been going along, that is when you hit the AI tipping point. This AI tipping point is when people start to feel more productive. This is when people say they experience some work-life balance, and then also when people start to experience more work joy. So the tip to get to the tipping point is just going forward every day, try to use this technology. When you have a task, you're not sure whether you can or can't do it, use it. But the thing is, how do you keep it going? So you got to start small. So I think if you're not using it, just using it to help craft an email. That's about as simple as a thing you can get. So you start small with that, and you got to habit stack it. So right before you hit send on an email, you just go polish email. That's what you have the AI do. And then just, as John was saying before, keep it simple. You have to keep everything simple. So now generative AI, when you do this, when you have the habits, generative AI starts to develop and create joy. So what do I mean by this? So if you think about work, work is comprised of two things, joy and toil. People love the joy, people don't love the toil. And in fact, data shows here that if you have 10 hours or more of joy in your job, you're not going to look for another job per week. But if you experience 4 hours or more of toil in your job, that's when people start to look for another job. So if we think about it, what is joy versus toil? So here, the red is toil, green is ultimate joy, yellow is meh. So if we think about what is the red here, it is administrative tasks. That is the toil, that is what everybody dislikes. And the Boston Consulting Group said, you know what? If you can find a way to minimize the toil and maximize joy, you have something called the joy effect. And actually, this shows a 50% increase of retention of associates. So when we think about joy, employees using this technology for professional development, they report 18% higher joy. Writing emails, writing reports, using this technology, saving people time. They say this creates joy. Using it for calendaring, using it to help save them times with this. It saves them time and then increased task joy. And then teams that actually work with their management to actually develop some of these processes, they also say that increases joy. So then, if you actually have this time savings of this joy when you've reduced the toil, then you have a huge opportunity. How do the people choose to use this time savings? Do they do more work? Do they spend more time at the water cooler? Do they go home early? So the people have a whole host of opportunities of how they want to spend the time in which they've reduced their toil. So just pulling it all together very quickly, you have AI literacy and the AI habits. This generates the joy. And when we think about the joy, so when you have joy and people are producing more, they're more productive. And when they're more productive, the hotel is generating more revenue. You're generating more revenue. The hotel is growing. The hotel is growing, but you don't need to increase the headcount. You're keeping your costs low. So that is a true benefit of this. And then how do you come up with a framework for joy? So you think of a task that you want to map out. So you have, say, a sales RFP. I think that's my signal. All right, so we'll cut to this one real quickly. So here's the equation for the generative AI productivity paradox. A, upskilling plus habits times productivity, that equals retention and revenue. And this is the session review. This is what we talked about. And scan this if you want to be part of the survey. And I'm done. So scan that, participate in the foundation survey, and thank you very much.